So to get into the second session with the Strelitzia using our oil pastels, I'm going to carry on working on the petals in orange. Hoping by now you've maybe started practicing. Still working with my reference here. I've got a good idea of color. Trying to see where the light falls and catches each petal and the shadow edge. Shadows enhancing the light and brights. Often using short, hard pressure on the short strokes. As you build up layers, the short marks work better. Add a bit of my violet here into the shadow side where this petal overlaps. Violet being the complementary of yellow, and with orange having a lot of yellow in it, it forms a great color for shadow. Also mixing in your painting, even to mix a violet or with a yellow or a blue with an orange will give you a great shadow color, which is more vibrant than ever using black for your grays. You'll see how once you add a bit of dark, it pushes the lights forward. Most important, lots of people when they start out avoid dark colors, shadow colors, but they are vital to making your brights stand out more. And then where they're a little hard, you can soften the edge. To get a nice, it's difficult with oil pastels to get a sharp edge on any shape because of the nature of a pastel. But you can use your flat side just to get a sharp edge. You can also cut, using a knife, you can cut your pastel into the shape you want. I'm thinking about background here, whether or not to put in some leaves later on, which I did in my first one. Select a thin petal behind. Just a little slash of bright orange as you see it there. And then it goes much lighter, so I'm going to use this golden yellow, mixing with the brighter orange gives a very nice hue. Take a bit of paper off here. Get this nice strong edge to that. Use my orange torch on just to push the color into the paper, which also helps it not to flake off Now to go for this blue petal. I think it is, or part of the flower. I'm not sure of the name of it. But it's very lovely colours. I think I'm going to use a violet, perhaps a deep blue, because I don't have that exact shade. It's a sort of a lavender shade, so I'm going to try and mix it, perhaps even using these two. We'll start with the darkest, as I've said before, to try and lay your darks in first, as we did with the orange petals. So we'll lay in the darkest areas here. I should be working quite thinly, light pressure, with short strokes. The pressure and the marks, strokes that you make are vital to getting the final effect that you want. It's a dark edge underneath, so I'm going to make that line quite strong. Now I'm going to use the blue. Remembering we're going to lay lights on top of dark, so if it appears a bit dark to start with, that's fine, that's how it should be. Adding the lights later. Now I have this pale blue, which is not quite the right value. It's quite a much sort of warmer blue than the one on the actual plant, but for the purpose of this drawing I think it's going to be fine. We have artistic license to make an art piece which doesn't have to be photographic. You'll see how beautifully these two colors, complementaries, work together. There's also this other blue stameny thing sticking out the back here, which I might put in there, but as you will see, yes, I think you can just see it from your viewpoint. Hopefully you can. It just gives a bit of balance to the composition as well, having the other one. Nature's marvelous. It does composition all on its own. Got to be very light with the brush, because I've realized it does pick up a bit of color with it, so you can either shake your paper or blow it, or just work lightly with the brush to get rid of the surplus. I think we'll leave this one just as it is, just a little bit of a sharp edge here. I'm going to rub it in. I'm going to use a clean tortillon, not the one I used for the orange, so as not to mix the colors. Here too. Now to get some light, to get that light edge, I'm going to use white. Again, I'll clean off my color. Make sure that it's not going to pick up any orange or on the blue. You'll see that gives it a nice highlight a little there as well. You more or less press the colour on with these. It'll take you a while. I suggest before you start drawing this, if you want to try Strelitzia, just try drawing a pattern, a mandala or a scribble pattern, using your colours as I have here, just to practice with them before you actually start on an actual picture, because it'll be far less daunting to do it that way, allowing yourself a bit of freedom to get used to the feel of the pastel first. Put in these white stems which don't really show up here, lower part of the petal. Now to go on to this large part. I really need to read up on the names for these parts. This flower is extremely complex. I see here the light is behind, coming from this left hand side, so there's tricky shadows going on here. I'm going to start again with, I'll have to select some greens. So I have some greens to work with. The blues and the violets there. Two rather dull greens, and perhaps again I'm going to use, I think, a deep blue for the darkest part. This one. So to start with, I'm going to get this sharp edge. But very lightly here I'm going to fill in this part, which is the greatest shadow part underneath. It's also not only in shadow, the color of this particular part of the plant also ranges from sort of deep green, violets, going to pink, a lighter green with the yellow tinge, and then pink again. It's almost all the colors of the rainbow in this part. And there's that. I'm just going to indicate that part like that, so don't forget it's there. And I'm going to add to this, before I go to the greens, I'm going to put this sort of purpley color in here, so very lightly to start with. We'll rub it in later with the tortillon. I'm sure this plant changed shape overnight, because since my last session it seems to be a little different from what it was when I started, which does happen. Petals open and eventually drop off. To add a bit of green in here. Again, we are working like the Impressionists did with their Impressionist paintings, putting on dabs of color alongside one another to give an illusion of a color, and actually mixing them on the palette. The lighter green. Like that, like that. And then I'm going to use which yellow? This one perhaps. Bright one. It's just at the edge. I've got this. And then a pink. This is a bit of guesswork as you go along. There's no specific rules I can give you for this, except to look very carefully, to learn to see your colors. Once you learn that, you can see the colors in everything much more clearly. Every time you draw a new subject, you'll have a better idea of the colors and match them up with what you have in your palette or in your box of pastels. quite a delicate section here because there's touches of colour that lay side by side. The lighter pink. Working with these is very much like working with crayon. When you were a child and you used crayons, it calls to mind the same sort of technique. Some of this lighter yellow in here. Now I'm going to rub this in and just to see what happens. Blend it in. I'll start with my one that's got the blue on it, so I can easily use quite a few of these tortillons. I'm rubbing quite hard now to rub the pastel into the paper so that my next layer of colour will sit nicely on top. I'm not going to go too far with this purple because I want to have some bright showing, so I'm going to use this, maybe this one. It's for blending in the lighter tones at the top. The lighter hues, the correct word, I think. Messy medium, picking up a bits of colour on the bottom here. Right, so that's pretty bright but quite contrived looking and not as it should be at this stage. So now I'm going to use, I think, this lighter greeny colour just to downplay the purple, the violet a little bit. I don't want it to be too unnatural looking. Well, depending on the effect you want. You can be as imaginary as you like with flowers. Turn them into your own imaginary flower. If a painting or drawing's not coming out the way you want, you just turn it into something surreal or make-believe. It's your art that you should be enjoying. And often, as I often say, is mistakes can lead to many more discoveries of what's possible. Sort of a bright pink. Just that dash of it there. Maybe a stroke of red in the pink to make it stronger. Just there. And just at the end here. And here. Remember also not to be too self-critical when you're doing something. Be forgiving and to yourself, and allow yourself to experiment, make mistakes. It's the best possible way to learn anything. In fact, make lots of mistakes. Then you learn far quicker. I've been through the process, teaching myself how to use these mediums, and made many failures on the journey, and probably still will make more, because it's a never-ending journey. Every new subject we do will come with its own set of challenges. So I think for the time being, I'll take off the little bits of, rub in a little more, blend slightly. You can decide where you want to blend and where you want to leave a sharp edge. Before I finish off the section, I'm just going to use some much lighter color here, just to give it some contrast, perhaps even the white. There's our white. White, very useful color, as it is in oil painting. It softens everything. You can see how it drops back. And finally, I'm going to put, this is a bit, I don't know whether I like this violety color here. Oh, it's a bit more white here. There's a sort of a bloom on this part of the plant. Okay, so I think that's it for this session. Next we'll go on to doing the stalk in the next one, and perhaps including a couple of leaves in the background. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed watching. Till next time.